it's my first time, and your pencil too big for me. Hi, my name is Amanda, I'm 18 years old. My life has always been quiet and reserved, it's just me and my father, because my mother left us many years ago. She disappeared suddenly, as if she had vanished into the fog, and left behind only cold rooms that my father and I filled with the warmth of our care. We have always stuck together like two ships in the ocean supporting each other in a storm. A few months ago I entered the university. It was a big step forward. For me, a girl who was used to the stability of our little world, it was something huge. Lectures, new acquaintances, noisy corridors, all this was exciting, but also frightening. My father was proud of me, although I could see how hard it was for him to be alone. Every time I came home, his smile brightened my day. But university life quickly took over. I started going to parties, at first just out of curiosity. The atmosphere was completely different from what I was used to. Loud music, unfamiliar faces, a sense of freedom that vibrated in the air. It was a whole new side of life that I had never seen before. After one of the first parties, I came home when the city was already asleep. My father was sitting in the kitchen with a cup of tea, waiting for me. His gaze was gentle, but I could feel the underlying unease. "How was the party?" he asked, trying to sound carefree. "Fun," I answered, avoiding details. He nodded, and silence filled the room. I felt an unusual tension hanging between us, but then I decided to ignore it. Every time I left the house in the evening, that feeling returned. It was as if he was afraid that the world outside our walls might change me. That evening began as usual, cheerful music, dancing, some cocktails in hand. But this time, I went through a little. The heady warmth of alcohol made me bolder, more relaxed. The whole world seemed to obey my smile. When I got home, it was late at night. The door was open as usual when my father was waiting for me. He sat at his laptop in the living room, his profile illuminated by the soft light of the lamp. Father always looked confident and collected, even late at night. His broad shoulders, toned body and tattoos, which looked from under the sleeves of a t-shirt, betrayed his habit of keeping himself in perfect shape. His thick dark hair was neatly combed, and a few gray strands added charm. I cautiously jumped into the room and, coming up from behind, lightly touched his shoulders. "Boo!" I exclaimed, barely holding back my laughter. The father flinched and then laughed, leaning forward a little, as he always does when he is truly cheerful. "Amanda, what are you doing?" he asked, smelling my perfume and alcohol. "I live to the fullest." I giggled, feeling my head spin a little. He got up from his chair and turned to me, easily holding his shoulders. His hands were warm, strong, as if created to protect me from the whole world. His eyes read tenderness, but suddenly I felt something else, something strange. There was something about the way his smell enveloped me, the way his smile scattered the remnants of my drunken serenity that made me freeze. My laughter broke as I looked up and met his gaze. In that look was everything: care, love, light reproach. But something else. I quickly stepped back, trying to laugh again to discharge the air. "You're always so serious. Relax." I waved my hand and went to my room. But already behind closed doors, I lay in bed for a long time, feeling this inexplicable feeling pulsing inside. His voice, calm but a little harsh, made me stop. "Amanda, go to the shower. You need to refresh yourself a little," he said, with his head slightly tilted. I nodded, trying not to stare at his strong arms crossed across his chest. I felt my heart beating faster. His care has always been more than just a duty to me, but this time its shades seemed different to me. I went to the bathroom, leaving the door open. My father and I always trusted each other, and such a gesture seemed natural. She turned on the water, and a hot stream began to flow around my body, mixing with confused thoughts. Standing in the shower, I imagined him. His hands, which held me so easily a little earlier, his smile, which seemed to penetrate into the deepest corners of my consciousness. Every drop that touched my skin became like his touch. I walked through the pressure of water on my neck, shoulders, slowly descending below, feeling how the warm stream fills me with warmth. Thoughts did not stop. His image filled me, every cell. I tried to focus on the water, on the sound of it falling. But his smile and voice were constantly in my imagination. Suddenly I noticed movement out of the corner of my eye. Through the gap between the door my father stood and looked at me. His look was both soft and attentive, and a smile played on his lips, as if he himself did not understand how he ended up here. My heart froze. I held my breath but did nothing to hide myself. The water continued to flow down my skin, but at that moment it began to seem something else, as if his eyes added to every drop of his heat. We looked at each other as if the whole world had stopped. I always remembered how my father and I could talk with our eyes. His warm smile was the most precious thing in the world to me. Even when I was very young, he liked to lean towards me and jokingly say, "Amanda, you are my favorite person in this world." And then be sure to wait until I answer, "And you are mine." These days together, he always found time to do something special. We often went to the park, walked along the alleys, holding hands, as if we could protect each other from the whole world. I loved those walks most of all when we stayed at the little ice cream shop. "Choose," he said, always with a smile that underlined the little dimple on his cheek. I always took chocolate, and he too, as if it was our unspoken ritual. When the ice cream melted in my hands, he laughed and gently wiped my fingers with a napkin. He never spoke badly of his mother. Even after she left us, he found the strength to say, "She just chose another life. It doesn't mean you're not important to her," but I knew it wasn't. I saw his eyes change when someone happened to mention her name. I saw how he tried to hide the pain so as not to hurt me. My mother was a shadow to me. She disappeared leaving us and I couldn't see how she could leave a man who was such a perfect father. Over the years, my hatred for her grew, but he never supported this feeling. He always tried to teach me love, even when there was little left in his own heart. Remembering those moments, I realized how much he influenced me. His care, his smile, his love, all this became the basis of my world. Water flowed from me in thin streams, and I stood, feeling the heat of awareness of the situation making its way through my consciousness. His father was still standing there, his smile as if apologizing for being in this moment, but he did not look away. I was embarrassed, but in a surprisingly soft voice I said, "Come in." He stepped into the bathroom as if hesitating. I saw his eyes glancing at me, but he quickly looked away. Reaching for a chair beside him, he took a towel. "You're all wet. Let me help." His voice was familiar, calm, but I noticed a slight shade of tension. He approached carefully, as if afraid to scare me, and began to wipe me with a towel. First my shoulders, arms, slowly descending below. His touch was so familiar, but at the same time completely different. I looked at his face, at the clear lines of cheekbones, a strong jaw, and felt something unknown rise in me. Each movement seemed deliberate and gentle. He bent down to gently wipe the drops that were dripping down my neck. I felt the warmth of his breath, and I was overwhelmed by the strange but thrilling feeling that we were in a completely different world where there were no rules. "This is wrong," flashed in my head. "It's taboo, unacceptable," but at the same time, I couldn't look away. His body, which I used to see, now looked different, muscles clearly defined. Under the t-shirt, tattoos that barely looked from under the sleeves. He was always fit, but I never let myself look like that. I could feel my heart pounding. He seemed to notice it. For a moment he froze, still holding the towel, and his gaze met mine. It was taboo, but at that moment, the world seemed to forget what prohibitions are. His hands were warm, strong, but at the same time careful when he began to wipe my hair with a towel. I felt the tension accumulating in my body gradually disappear. His fingers passed gently over my head, smoothing the strands, and it was so tender that I could not resist and closed my eyes. Water still drained from the ends of his hair, but every movement of his hands seemed thoughtful, as if he knew how to make this moment last forever. His fingers inadvertently touched the skin on my neck and it caused a heatwave in me that spilled all over my body. I felt the tension disappear from my shoulders, as every cell of my body relaxes under his gentle touch. The bathroom, lit by warm light, turned into some other space, our small, locked from the outside world. "Is it better?" His voice was soft, barely audible, but very close. I nodded without opening my eyes. My breath was calm, but my heart was still beating a little faster than a little bee. His every move, it was more than just caring. I could feel it in his touch, in the way his hands stopped for a moment before continuing. You need to rest. He paused, taking off his towel and placing it momentarily on my shoulders. I opened my eyes, looking up. His face was close and his gaze seemed so deep that I felt breathless. Thank you, I whispered, not recognizing my own voice. He smiled, a slight wrinkle appearing on his cheeks. That smile was always a comfort to me, but now I could feel it kindling something more than just calm. This moment was fragile, almost unreal. And at the same time, one that I will never forget. We stood so close that I could hear his breath, warm and even, mingling with the sound of water drops falling from my hair. My thoughts mingled, spilling like water underfoot. Time seemed to stop, leaving us alone in this small space. My eyes found his gaze. There was something about it that I had never noticed before, or perhaps not allowed myself to see. It was not only care, not only love, it was something more, something that broke down the walls that I had been building in my mind for so long. I didn't know which of us broke the barrier between us first. Maybe it was me, perhaps it was inevitable. I just leaned forward, feeling my heart pounding in my chest. My breath froze for a moment when my lips touched it. There was a split second when I thought he would retreat, but this did not happen. On the contrary, his hands gently touched my shoulders, and then hugged me tighter. He answered my kiss, gently but confidently, as if letting me know that he wanted it too. Everything around, which could remind of reality, dissolved. There were no more rules, no conventions, no bans. There was only this feeling that enveloped us, like a warm steam in the air. I felt my heart filled with something new, something strong and irresistible. His warmth, his touch, all this became an integral part of me. It no longer seemed wrong. It was as natural as breathing. As we pulled away, I saw his gaze grow even deeper. He looked at me as if he finally saw something that had been hidden all this time. Amanda, his voice was hoarse, but it sounded so tender that I knew that nothing else would be the same as before. His hands clasped firmly around my waist, and I felt a wave of heat sweep through my body. It was not the drunken chaos I felt an hour ago, but something completely different. My heart beat in rhythm with his, and every touch only enhanced this feeling. I looked at him, and there was no longer any doubt about that look. Everything I had held back, everything I had tried to suppress, had now escaped. He also felt it, I saw it in his eyes, in the way his fingers seemed to be afraid, but could not stop. My consciousness was clear. All alcohol had long eroded, but I now felt a different drunkenness. A drunkenness from the passion that had captured us both. My breathing became heavier as he drew me closer. Are you sure? His voice was low, as if he were afraid to disturb that fragile moment. I nodded, but it was not enough. I put my hand on his chest, feeling his heartbeat as violently as mine. Yes, I whispered. His hands rose higher, sliding along my sides but still remaining cautious. He held me as if he were afraid I might disappear like fog at dawn. But I was here. Every cell of my body lived for this moment. The air between us seemed charged. As if there were another world around us, where nothing existed but the two of us. His fingers easily pressed my sides, and I felt my body respond to this touch. We didn't talk anymore. Words were superfluous. His movements spoke more than could be expressed. Everything that had held us back before disappeared, and only what we felt now remained. A pulsating, undeniable desire. His touch became more confident, and my body responded to them as if it had been waiting for this moment all my life. Hot water flowed down our skins, blurring the boundaries between us, as if the shower were created to hide us from the whole world. I felt every detail. The strength of his hands, the warmth of his breath, his heart beating in unison with mine. Everything around me seemed unreal. Our bodies moved in a single rhythm, like waves enveloping the shore, and I was completely immersed in this element. But suddenly, in this storm of emotions, he stopped. His hands gently wrapped around me like a treasure in need of protection. I looked up, and in his eyes I saw something more than desire. There was tenderness, care that was always there, even when I did not notice it. Without saying a word, he picked me up. My hands wrapped around his neck and my heart was pounding. His every move was so sure, as if he would not allow me to lose ground under my feet again. The water was still running down us as he carried me out of the bathroom. The air seemed cold compared to the warmth of our bodies, but I could only feel it. His footsteps were quiet but confident as he carried me into his room. He carefully put me on the bed, as if it were a ritual, something sacred that could not be destroyed in a hurry. His hands slid down my face, resting on my chin, and he bent down to look into my eyes. Amanda, his voice was deep and filled with tenderness. I pulled him closer, unable to stay even for a moment without him. Now there was nothing to stop us. We became one, and it was more than a passion, it was a recognition that there was always something special between us. The silence in the room was almost palpable, disturbed only by our breaths. The soft light that penetrated the curtains enveloped us in warmth, creating the feeling that this moment existed outside of time. The bed beneath us seemed like an island in a vast world that remained far behind the door. He leaned closer and I could feel his breath barely touching my skin. His hands slid over my body, confident and gentle, as if studying every line. His touch was so delicate that every cell in my body responded to it, pulsing with warmth. My heart was pounding so loudly that it seemed he could hear it. But in his eyes there was no haste, only boundless tenderness. He raised my face and I met his gaze. There was something unspeakably strong about this moment, a silent recognition that nothing holds us back anymore. He bent down and our lips reconnected. But this time the kiss was different, deeper, slower, full of tenderness and warmth that overwhelmed me to the brim. His hands came down my shoulders, and his every touch seemed so meaningful that I lost control of myself. It was as if he knew how I felt and responded to it with such delicacy that my body literally trembled beneath him. The air between us became hotter, filled with that invisible energy that seemed almost magical. Our movements were slow, careful, as if we wanted to capture every moment in memory. We were united in this space and there was nothing but authenticity about it. His warmth enveloped me, and I knew that I would never forget this moment. He was so pure and boundless. We lay side by side, silence enveloping us, but it was not unusual. It was a silence that spoke more than words could. His hand lay carefully on my waist, and I looked at the ceiling, trying to realize what had just happened. My thoughts were confused, intertwined between reality and what it meant. But at that moment I felt no shame or guilt, only the warmth and peace that he always brought to my life. I turned my head to look at him. His face was calm, but the eyes that met my gaze spoke more. I didn't know how to start, but he stopped me by lightly touching my face. I know, he said quietly, as if he already understood everything I wanted to say. I felt it too, and maybe it's wrong, but he didn't finish. Apparently, it was not necessary. Everything has already been said, in our movements, in our touches, in the way we looked at each other. What now? I asked barely, without taking my eyes off him. His look softened and he smiled slightly, touching my hair. We're in no hurry, he said. We live as we lived, but now, we know. I nodded, knowing what he meant. We could leave this moment just for us. No one will ever know what happened between us this evening. But it wasn't something I could forget or hide deep within myself. It became part of me. He pulled me closer and I put my head on his shoulder. His heart beat slowly, smoothly, and it calmed me. And although there were still many unanswered questions ahead of us, now I knew one thing. This was our moment, our secret, and nothing could take it away from us. We were left alone, feeling the air between us gradually saturated with something else. New, invisible, but incredibly strong. The silence was no longer heavy. She became a silent witness that no one would ever understand. His hand easily stroked my waist, as if assuring me that this was not a dream, but a reality that we decided to accept. I looked into his face, looking for confirmation that he felt it too. And I found him, in the deep wrinkles around his eyes, in the way his lips barely noticeably rose in a calm smile. Aren't you sorry? I whispered, barely daring to voice the question. His eyes found mine. He had the confidence I lacked. Sorry? No, Amanda. Not about what's real. His words dispelled the remnants of doubt. We did not discuss the future, did not create plans. But I knew it would stay with us forever. I closed my eyes,